City Housing Commission Board of Commissioners. It is 9:07 a.m. on October 10th, 1024, and I'm going to call today's meeting of the board to order. We are meeting in person this morning with commissioners, staff, and members of the public in attendance. We indeed have a quorum with all commissioners present except for Commissioner Vasquez. Video of today's meeting is also being streamed live online. The link to watch today's meeting is on the Housing Commission website at www.sdhc.org. Members of the public who wish to provide comments to the board will need to complete a speaker slip and provide that speaker slip to our Vice President of Communications, Scott Marshall, who is standing over on the side of the boardroom. In a moment, I will be proposing that agenda item 100 be placed on the consent agenda for today's meeting. Members of the public may provide comments about the items on the consent agenda by submitting a speaker request form for that item before the board considers the consent agenda. Remember, to speak in favor of an item on today's agenda, please submit a gold-colored form. To speak in opposition to any agenda item, please submit a pink-colored form, and those who wish to address the board about a topic that is not on the agenda should fill out a white speaker form. Members of the public will have 3 minutes each to provide their comments about any agenda item or non-agenda public comment. However, if a large number of people wish to provide comments on a non-agenda public item or speak on a single agenda item, comments will be limited to 1 minute each. Collective testimony with those who support or oppose an item should be limited to no more than 15 minutes total per side. When I call your name, please step up to the podium, state your name for the record, and begin making your comments. So now it is time for non-agenda public comments. I do not see any speaker slips, so there are no non-agenda public comments to be made. Commissioners, are there any comments from any of you? All right. Seeing none, we will then move directly to the report from the President and CEO, actually to the COO, who is filling in for Lisa Jones, our Deputy CEO, Jeff Davis. Jeff, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. Our CEO, Lisa, is enjoying a well-deserved break. The monthly discussion a moment ago, wait, there was no monthly discussion a moment ago. What happened, Ryan?
There was not. I looked over at Ryan because I'm so accustomed to...
So we're going to be sharing with you this morning some of our ongoing efforts with the city, county, and additional partners to address homelessness. These conversations are recurring, but they're especially fitting today. The City Council proclaimed today as World Homeless Day in the city of San Diego. The Council proclamation included the statement that World Homeless Day is internationally recognized as a day to raise awareness, amplify the voices of those affected, and inspire local communities, including San Diego, to take meaningful action toward ending homelessness. The proclamation was presented by Council President Sean Elo Rivera, Council President Pro Tem Joe LaCava, and Council members Stephen Whitburn and Marnie von Wiltberg. Shelters are an essential component of homelessness strategies in the city. As you know, a number of the shelter beds will be going offline by the end of this year. We continue to work with the city's Homelessness Strategies and Solutions Department and the Regional Task Force on Homelessness to identify additional shelter capacity and other options. On October 1st, the City Council approved a short-term action plan on homelessness, which envisions a variety of interventions. These include diversion and financial assistance, expanding the city's safe sleeping sites, leasing rooms at hotels, or leasing rooms with additional partners. The Housing Commission has also been collaborating with the city's HSSD department to identify potential sites and service providers for additional homelessness shelters. In late June, we issued 2 requests for qualifications, one to identify sites that could accommodate shelter operations, and one to gauge the capacity of experienced service providers to operate shelter programs in the city. RFQs are open indefinitely to allow us to continue to receive responses on an ongoing basis. Additionally, our real estate division has searched for and identified potential sites for shelter operations. These sites require initial vetting by our real estate team to determine their potential feasibility before the city's staff performs more comprehensive analysis of these locations as possible future shelter sites. Housing Commission and HSSD staff have visited 8 sites, 1 identified through our RFQ process, and 7 potential sites that the Housing Commission's real estate staff have identified. We have also deemed 5 respondents qualified and responsive to operate potential shelter programs. We are working as expeditiously as possible while exercising diligence and prudence in assessing options for short-term shelter solutions. Casey Snell is continuing to engage with homelessness service providers about the potential to expand shelter beds at existing locations. Several congregate and non-congregate options are expected to be presented to the council in November or early December. One of the ways that we are creating shelter space is through the conversion of offices downstairs into a long-term home for shelter program for, transitional age youth. Demolition began this week for the capital improvements necessary for this to be a shelter site. We anticipate completing this project by the first quarter of 2025. To get to this point in the process, we completed the design process, obtained third-party cost estimates, obtained the approvals necessary to proceed with demolition and construction, including but not limited to bonds and insurance, and issued a notice to proceed to the contractor to start demolition. We want to express our thanks to the city's Development Services Department for making it possible to expedite the process for this project through its Affordable Housing Permit Now process. We also worked with U.S. Senator Alex Padilla and U.S. Representative Scott Peters, who secured $1.5 million in federal community project funding to support this conversion. When completed, this will become the long-term home for 44 transitional age youths experiencing homelessness. This is double the shelter's program current capacity of 22 beds at 2 interim sites. The LGBT Center, in partnership with San Diego Youth Services and the YMCA, currently operate the programs through a contract we administer. The program serves any transitional age youth experiencing homelessness, but it is the first program of its kind in San Diego to tailor its services specifically to affirm transition age youth who identify as part of the LGBTQ+ community. Additional long-term affordable housing units are also necessary to make progress addressing homelessness, so I'm pleased to also have a few updates to share with you in regard to that. 2 properties supported with state home key funds have completed construction. Both are Housing Commission collaborations with developers, along with the city, the county, and service providers. First, the Shores at North Beach, previously known to you as Abbott Street Apartments, consists of 13 affordable housing units with supportive services for individuals who experience chronic homelessness. Wakeland Housing and Development Corporation rehabilitated this property in the Ocean Beach neighborhood to create these housing units. Housing Commission awarded rental housing vouchers so that residents would have help paying their rent. In the past, this property had served as transitional housing. However, it was vacant until Wakeland completed the rehabilitation to create this long-term affordable rental housing at the site, and now new residents will be moving in later this month. Next, the Path Vias El Cerrito development in a newly constructed property that now provides 40 affordable units with supportive services for people who experience homelessness. These units are all now occupied. This project also received an award of state home key funds, as well as investments from the city and county of San Diego. And the Housing Commission awarded 40 rental housing vouchers to help residents pay their rent. The property was developed by Path Ventures, Bold Communities, and Family Health Centers of San Diego. And Family Health Centers also operates a first-floor health clinic on the property in the El Cerrito neighborhood. The units at Path Vias El Cerrito and Shores at North Beach are among more than 600 units that have been created in San Diego with home key funds since that state program started in 2020. The Housing Commission owns properties that account for more than 550 of those units for households that experience homelessness. One of our properties is Pacific Village, where construction has been occurring since March to transform a former hotel into 62 affordable housing units. The building has received its base coat of paint. The removal of old roofing shingles is now complete, and work has started this week, including roof sheathing repair and installation of solar panels. Previously completed improvements included installation of new windows, doors, and HVAC units, as well as exterior repairs and fresh stucco. So we have a few before and after pictures just to see how things are going. We remain on track to complete the rehabilitation in time for residents to begin moving in February of 2025. This is well in advance of the home key deadline. I'll also note that one of the items on today's agenda is the board's consideration of a contract for the rehabilitation of our other recently acquired home key funded property, Presidio Palms. If the board approves that contract, we anticipate rehab of Presidio Palms is going to begin later this month. That project will convert a former extended stay hotel into 161 affordable housing units. We were honored last month to be recognized with 3 awards of merit with the National Association of Housing and Redevelopment Officials, or NARO. One award went to our Housing Instability Prevention Program, or HIP. This program helps pay rent and other housing-related expenses for households in the city of San Diego with low income, experiencing a housing crisis, or who are at risk of imminent homelessness. We provide $250, $500, or $750 per month toward rent on behalf of enrolled households, depending on their individual circumstances. The program also provides case management and assists with housing-related expenses, such as past due rent and past due utilities. HIP can now assist up to 300 families. Next, our compensation study for positions in the homelessness service sector was honored. We completed the study to support the recruitment and the retention of staff for frontline homelessness service providers. The study demonstrated that homelessness service sector wages are well below the cost of living in San Diego, with most frontline staff unable to afford a 1-bedroom rental housing unit in our city. We are making budget recommendations to the City of San Diego for frontline service program staff wages as part of a scaled approach. The first stage was implemented in our fiscal year 2024 budget. And our third award recognized our efforts to support awareness, outreach, and assistance for households to apply for the Federal Affordability Connectivity Program. We received a $230,000 grant from the Federal Communications Commission for these efforts. As of October 31st, 2023, the cutoff for the awards program, we had conducted 1,276 outreach events and reached out to more than 103,000 people through flyers and presentations. The Affordable Connectivity Program supports digital inclusion by providing eligible low-income households with discounts towards internet services and a one-time discount toward the purchase of a device from a participating provider. Congratulations to all the staff who worked on these award-winning initiatives, and thanks to this board for your leadership and support for the innovative efforts such as these. And finally, we have another update for you today about the flood recovery program for displaced residents. September 30th was the deadline for families to secure housing or choose a lump sum payment to be able to receive assistance from this program. As a reminder, the funding the county allocated to launch this program was based on the number of City of San Diego residents that the county verified as eligible for and participating in the county's emergency temporary lodging program at the time. The City Council also allocated funding for the fiscal year 2025 budget to support flood assistance efforts. The 359 families who were eligible for and enrolled in the county's program as of May 23rd were eligible for assistance from our program. 91% of those families submitted applications, and as of October 2nd, out of the 359 eligible families, 90% have received financial assistance from our program. Another 4 families are pre-approved, and 1 is pending submission of documentation. 10 families withdrew their applications or became unresponsive after they applied. Overall, we've distributed more than $4.1 million to assist eligible displaced families. And at this point, we are projecting that our short-term rental assistance obligations through March 2025 will be more than $457,000. We will not have final financial numbers until the program closes out later this month. Our anticipated expenditures also include $660,000 for our contract with the Harvey Family Foundation for housing restoration assistance. This enables homeowners to rehabilitate damaged homes and restabilize families into their homes. Rehabilitation has been completed for 8 units through the Housing Restoration Program. Another 7 are pending review. The Housing Search Assistance component of our program concluded on September 30th. More than 230 families were referred to us for housing search assistance, and we provided more than 2,100 rental unit leads through this program. And we've also contracted with Logan Heights Community Development Corporation and budgeted $250,000 to assist displaced families through April with light touch case management and supportive services. These are intended to assist these families as their short-term rental assistance through our program ends this spring. Overall, 323 families from the County Emergency Temporary Lodging Program reported to us that they had stable housing as of October 2nd. These include families who received financial assistance from the Housing Commission, those who were pending assistance, and families who did not apply for assistance but spoke to us during our outreach efforts. We once again want to thank this board for your support for flood recovery initiatives to assist displaced families, and our staff continue to serve these families with compassion and professionalism, and as they have throughout the flood, and we thank them too. That concludes my report. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Jeff, and I think it was an excellent report. I'll go to Commissioner comments in a second. Actually, we'll go ahead and do it now. If there are any commissioner comments on Jeff's report, I would just say that I want to again applaud the staff on the awards, on the recognition of the efforts that you're making, and also we met with the flood victims yesterday. Astor Deborah. It's an interesting situation that the Housing Commission staff is leading. There's a lot left to be done, but it's good to see that we're still heavily engaged and trying to help people. And there's a lot of work left to be done. So, all right.
I have a couple.
Commissioner Jackson.
Yes, I'm curious as to the funding for the flood recovery. Is that coming from the city, or is that out of our budget, or we're being reimbursed?
That is a great question. I learned a lot more yesterday. I would say that and Jeff should chime in. There have been funds presented. I think there's confusion about funding, and that was evident in the meeting yesterday about who's eligible for FEMA funding. Is there any more money coming from the county or from the city? We did receive an original allotment of funds, which we're utilizing. I don't know if there's going to be. I would say for certain that the next phase of recovery is going to depend on philanthropy and collaboration. I think there are still a lot of people that need support, and that funding has not been provided yet, as to my knowledge. So, but there is a lot that has to be done, and as we prepare for the upcoming winter and rainy season, what in the meeting yesterday, what we talked about was trying to plan ahead to protect those that have already been disrupted. And some of this is basic needs that they will have. But there is some tension, and rightfully so, about are we ready for the next rainy season, and can we provide a little more support and care for those who are still struggling. So, okay. Next up on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from September 13th, regular meeting of the board. No speaker slips have been submitted regarding the minutes.
Chair, do you mind if we hear from Casey first?
I do not mind at all. I was wondering, Vice Chair Clunder, I was Casey going to sit here and not actually come to the mic?
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I'm here today to present an update on the coordinated shelter intake program and where we stand. So in the month of September, we received 1,955 referrals for shelter, and we're able to accommodate 247, so 13% completion rate. As a reminder, though, intakes were suspended for Golden Hall in June. That's no access to the 264 beds. And in July, we suspended intakes at the PMC, which is 350 beds. So you can see it's obviously having a toll on our placement rates. Just a reminder, in FY24, we closed out at 19%. So we saw a very sudden drop, obviously, when those beds became offline. In FY25 year-to-date, so after the first quarter, we've processed 6,181 referrals to shelter, of which 764 have been placed, so 12% is our completion rate year-to-date. The number one reason that they're incomplete is because we don't have enough male beds. That's 66% of the reason. And then no female beds, which is 22% of the reason we can't complete the referrals.
Thank you. And to echo your comments about HomeKey, quick question for Jeff. Has any other agency in the county received HomeKey funding since that program has been around?
No.
And to put a point on that, Vice Chair Klempner, I think of the 18 cities, only 2 actually applied for funding in total.
Well, I think this agency should be very proud of that. That's 600 permanent supportive housing units that would not exist if it weren't for this agency in particular's leadership, as well as the partners at the county and the city, all of whom were essential to pulling the funding together for it. The last question I'd like to ask too is, I believe that all of these HomeKey applications have been dependent upon awarding vouchers because we are placing people in housing who essentially have little or no income at all. Is that?
That is correct. HomeKey has not included any kind of operational opportunities for funding. The latest round, called HomeKey Plus, is looking to possibly be different, but up until now, vouchers have really been a vital part of it, and it had to be.
So I'm glad to hear that that's being considered in HomeKey Plus, because I think this does raise an urgent question about the sustainability of opportunities like this in the future, meaning that if in the next 4 years we were to, I don't think anybody anticipates this, but if we were to have the same state funding opportunities or something equivalent, we would have a real challenge with allocating those vouchers. And it's not that there aren't ways that we could do that, but essentially we're at this point choosing to not take anybody off the wait list indefinitely, because essentially that would require all open vouchers to be allocated for this purpose. So I want to make sure that that's a cost that doesn't go unrecognized, because until we have an alternative funding source, essentially the people on the wait list are bearing the brunt of this cost in that sense. So thank you.
Yes.
I appreciate that comment, and it's not only that we have had to make the decision that we will not be pulling folks off of our waiting list in order to make these opportunities in HomeKey possible, but we've also had to dip into reserves, because we're paying for more vouchers than we actually get funding for. So until we can get to the point where we've seen enough attrition where we actually are no longer having to dip into our very limited reserves, that's just another element of this dichotomy we are with vouchers.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and Vice Chair Klempner, we've had this conversation about, we made the transition from vouchers for people that were on the waiting list during the crisis of homelessness to predominantly providing vouchers for people struggling with homelessness. I think going into 2025, and Molly probably has heard me say this before, somehow we have to get the congressional delegation to talk to HUD about the need for us to receive some sort of special benefit, because we can't continue to tread water, so to speak. And the last time we were in D.C. on the chamber trip, I think Molly and Lisa were there, we heard people say I think it was Congressman Levin said, well, you can't talk to us about more vouchers until the county starts, allocating all of theirs. I don't necessarily agree with that sentiment, but that was the sentiment that was coming from the trip. Ultimately, dipping into reserves is not the answer. We have to somehow figure out how to address this crisis, and hopefully we can collaborate. We collaborated with the county on the last 2 rounds of HomeKey, and that has produced great results. Somehow we have to find a way to collaborate with the county to make sure we can get the vouchers that we need to address the situation.
I completely agree, and I think one of the things that's challenging about vouchers is that it's this sort of abstract program that people are generally aware of. But just to put a finer point on this, when we allocate a voucher towards permanent supportive housing, the critical benefit that we're getting out of that is going to somebody in these home key cases who is currently living on the street and does not have an income beyond maybe disability or something. And that voucher is paying a low level of rent so that we can afford to keep that facility going. The next person on that wait list who's now not receiving the voucher because that voucher went to somebody else instead, that is somebody who is paying 50, 60, 70% of their income just to keep a roof over their heads and is severely rent burdened. And they will now continue to pay 50, 60, 70% rather than paying 30% of their income like our target. And so, when I say that like this cost is being disproportionately borne by the wait list, that's what I mean. The people who are rent burdened, who are eligible for assistance, who are at risk of homelessness in many cases, they are now paying, sometimes twice as much rent as they otherwise would because we had to send that voucher somewhere else rather than to them like they were expecting when they signed up for that wait list. So, thank you.
Commissioner Jackson.
I have one question, just to backtrack a little bit regarding I know we're building the transitional living downstairs.
Yes.
And so it brings on, 40-something beds?
So it's up to 60, right? Up to 60.
Is the other...
Is it 40 or 60? 44, okay.
So the ones that they're at now, the interim ones, are those going to remain open, or are we closing those? What's the status on that? Are they going to be used for another purpose?
We're actually temporarily renting a space from YMCA to house those individuals, and also we're renting space at a hotel. So we would not continue to utilize those resources. The funding wouldn't support it.
Yeah, I think the intent was when Father Joe's was announced it was closing was we were going to absorb the youth from Golden Hall into the space downstairs. So that's still on track. And I think I will end with this. I think what's important, and I said this at the last meeting, we have a lot of infrastructure coming online. It's good to hear Ocean Beach is coming on in November. Or I think you said no. When is the North Beach coming on?
Yeah, next month, right?
Next month. Okay, so in November. Then we have February, we have the Ramada, and then we hope to have the downstairs open by early next year. And then obviously the big one undergoing rehab by hopefully summer. So there is a lot of inventory coming on, but again, it's great, but to go back to what Vice Chair Klempner said, we have to figure out a way to balance this out for all the care. So, all right. We'll go back to the approval of the minutes. If there are no recommended changes to the minutes, can I receive a motion and a second? Motion by Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Hester, you haven't said anything at all this morning. I want to make sure. Commissioner Cushman did the second. I just was looking down. Okay. I'm like, all right. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Seeing none and no abstentions, the motion carries unanimously. As I said at the start of today's meeting, I am proposing that item 100, the amended Conflict of Interest Code of Housing for the Housing Commission, be placed on the consent agenda. No speaker slips have been submitted for this item. This concludes the public comment period for the item. Commissioners, no further comments on this item? All right, if not, I would entertain a motion and a second. Commissioner Hubbard, the second by the Vice Chair. All right. Seeing no further comments, all those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, that motion carries unanimously. So we will now go to item 101 on the agenda, which is the building rehabilitation contract for Presidio Palms. We will take public comment if there is any after the staff presentation. Vice President of Real Estate Development, Josh Hoffman, will present this item. Josh, good to see you this morning. Please begin when you are ready.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. The item before you today is a request to authorize the Housing Commission to enter into a contract for the building rehabilitation at Presidio Palms. There we go. The following slides provide a summary of this board's actions on the project and milestones to date. To recap, In April 2023, the board authorized the Housing Commission to execute a purchase and sale agreement to acquire the property, formerly an extended stay America Hotel. In July 2023, the board authorized an application for State of California Department of Housing Community Development Home Key Program grant funds. In February 2024, HCD notified the Housing Commission of its intent to award $35 million for the project, to be named Presidio Palms. In January 2024, the board authorized the execution of an amendment to an architectural design contract for the conversion of the property to affordable housing. Project plans were submitted to the city and are currently permit ready and pending issuance following the notification to the city of the selection of the general contractor and payment of fees. In May 2024, the board approved the acceptance of the home key funds, $17,806,432 each from the city and county, as well as $1.1 million from the San Diego Regional Task Force on Homelessness to support the acquisition and rehabilitation of the property. On July 25th of this year, the Housing Commission commenced a two-step competitive solicitation process for construction services for the rehabilitation of the property. And most recently, on August 16th, the Housing Commission successfully closed on the acquisition of the property. This slide shows the property in its current state. You'll recall it is located at 2087 Hotel Circle South in the Mission Valley community in Council District 3. The hotel was built in 1999 and consists of 165 guest rooms and a 3-story elevator-served building with a lobby and laundry room. After the rehabilitation is completed, the property will consist of 161 permanent affordable rental housing units with supportive services for people experiencing homelessness, 2 unrestricted managers units, office space for service providers and property management, and residents serving laundry and community rooms. The construction scope of work includes, but is not limited to, the items shown on this slide. For the contractor solicitation, the Housing Commission engaged in a two-step process with a request for qualifications, or RFQ, followed by an invitation for bid, or IFB. The RFQ was issued on July 25th of this year. 1,178 notices were sent to contractors, and 30 downloaded the RFQ. 5 contractors attended a pre-proposal meeting held on July 31st. 7 contractors attended a site walk held on August 2nd. 3 RFQ responses were received by the August 14th deadline. 2 responses were deemed non-compliant with U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, Section 3 pre-proposal outreach requirements, and were disqualified from bidding. LDCO's response complied with these requirements and was provided to an evaluation committee for review. Using the provided RFQ scoring criteria, the committee deemed LDCO a qualified respondent. Neither the number of responses or number of qualified respondents were disclosed to participants in the RFQ. The IFB was issued on September 16th to LDCO, the only qualified respondent to the RFQ, and closed on September 30th. The number of invited participants was not disclosed in the IFB. LDCO provided a response to the IFB on September 30th. LDCO's bid for the base project scope plus a list of defined cost add alternates totaled $9,577,833. This was deemed reasonable when compared to a third-party cost estimate and was within the parameters of the approved capital budget for the project. LDCO also provided unit costs in their bid that form the basis for allowances that are included in the contract amount. Unused allowances will be credited back to the Housing Commission at the conclusion of the project. This table identifies the sources and uses for the proposed rehabilitation of the property as previously approved by this board. The building rehabilitation contract for Presidio Palms will be funded by sources totaling $10,756,903. The uses of these funds will be applied to a hard cost amount not to exceed $9,577,833, with the remainder of the approved budget reserved for contingency. Excuse me. The contingency will not be expended unless there is a demonstrated need. Staff recommends that the board take the actions detailed in the staff report and shown on the next 2 slides. This concludes the presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Josh. I'll entertain questions. Josh, what year was this property built originally?
1999.
99, okay. When I was looking at the list, I made sense about the HVAC and some of the miscellaneous, not the miscellaneous, but some of the plumbing elements. And it's good to see about the photovoltaic system design. As we all, I think what everybody heard last month, we will be able to utilize the Energy Care program based on the governor's signature on a bill that was an idea that came from the commission. So congratulations, Molly, Josh. So that should help in terms of the energy costs for all of our home key projects. Okay. Any questions on this? All right. Seeing that there are no questions, I think and Josh, what's the estimated timeline, just so everybody's clear on?
The current deadline for home key is February 5th of next year. We did experience a little bit longer time for the permit for this process, so we're anticipating submitting for an application extension. So presently, April of next year is the target.
That would be wonderful.
Yep.
Okay. With that, I will entertain a motion on item 101 and a second.
So moved.
Commissioner Hesper, how you doing?
So moved. This is great.
Second by Vice Chair Klempner. Any further comments? Great job. Looking forward to getting this property open. And with that, all those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. And we are finished with today's agenda. What? Just when Commissioner Hester and I were starting to talk again, it's over. All right. This is the fastest one ever. So that concludes the board meeting for today. I would say that the meeting is officially adjourned at 9:45 a.m. And once again, thank you to the entire San Diego Housing Commission team for all you do every single day.